What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jared, and we're not doing a movie review today. We're jumping over to Netflix, and I wasn't actually planning on reviewing this, but I watched 1, 2, 3. All of a sudden, I ended up watching every single episode of this new series, The Witcher. The Witcher Geralt, a mutated monster hunter, struggles to find his place in a world in which people often prove more wicked than beasts. So does Netflix have the next Game of Thrones on their hands? Let's find out. But before I get into my thoughts, let me know what you guys thought of The Witcher, if you were able to check it out, or if you're very much in the middle, or looking forward to checking out this new series. Now let's get into some of the good. Getting right into The Witcher, obviously we're going to address the elephant in the room. Game of Thrones did not end well. People loved Game of Thrones, did not end well. I think that people are hungry for something more in that realm of kind of fantasy, medieval, kind of a period piece, that kind of material or show. And you know what, right off the bat, I'm going to say that Witcher with Netflix is going to fill that void, and hopefully people are still hungry for this kind of content, because again, I wasn't planning on watching this whole series this weekend, but I was thoroughly on board. I mean, right when you dive in with Henry Cavill as Geralt, this character, I mean, I was exposed a bit to the novels and the games. I know a general outline of kind of what's going on in this world, what's going on with The Witcher, and I think that Henry Cavill as the Geralt in this show is the perfect choice. I mean, he's brooding, he's very monotone, he's kicking ass, and obviously, you get those bathtub scenes that were so familiar in the video games and whatnot. But I think that him being at the forefront of this show very much kind of puts this as a higher caliber, because he's a well-known person. He's high Hollywood talent, I would say. But moving away from him, the world setup that they take, I'm assuming from the novels, I'm assuming from the games, and they put into this show, very much drops you into this like medieval Game of Thrones setting, like I mentioned earlier. But I feel like the fantasy, almost video game elements are elevated a bit. There's certain things, like I know that in the games there's a lot of choices, and if you make a choice, people are going to like it or not like it, and there's consequences. And obviously that is a mirror of real life. There's consequences in certain decisions, but I thought that they framed it, or almost the decisions that they made for Geralt, for example, in the show, were almost reminiscent of that. He would do something and then someone would say, oh, I don't like that, or there'd be a repercussion right there on the spot. So I like that they're very much kind of like playing into that a bit and getting those fans to begin with, but also getting in the casual fans as well that, they're missing out on Game of Thrones. So I'm saying that the talent in this show also kind of across or opposite of Geralt, Henry Cavill, is Yennefer. She's kind of a mage, purple eyes. She has a very great journey, or an interesting journey, I would say, throughout this show. And some people online are kind of saying this, and I would agree too. This show is probably a slow burn. I would say that if you watch 1 or 2 episodes and then give it up, I would say just keep trying. If you're in for this sort of content, I would say just keep going through, pushing through, because probably episode 3 or 4 is when I fully got on board. I was very curious for the first few, and then once 4 hit, I was like on board for this show. So I'd say that it's very much a slow burn show. But going back into kind of the aspects that I really enjoyed is the high fantasy elements of it. There's magic, there's these weird creatures, there's humans, elves, dwarves, weird changelings, I believe. There's a porcupine dude. Like, I love the weird creatures that they put into this show. And I mean, you are exposed to it within the first like 30 seconds of the show, because you have Geralt just chopping down this weird spider-like creature in this swamp. So you are very much on board that this is going to be almost reminiscent of the Fellowship of the Rings with the lake monster that comes out. So this is very much kind of a mixture of Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and a video game. So I would say if any of those things kind of jump out at you, The Witcher is very much for you. And the way that the plot kind of moves throughout this story, there's sort of 3 different things going on. And, they all play into each other, 3 different plot points almost, or plot lines, with all of these characters kind of mixing in and out. And some of Geralt's scenes or episodes, I would say, is kind of almost monster of the week. But I like that because it did play into the overall plot or the next episode or previous episodes. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. But getting those weird creatures, him going up against this weird thing, getting jobs, and it just, again, reeked really of a great smell of this fantasy world that I want more of in this. One final thing for positives, I would say, is Geralt the Witcher has or meets up with this bard, and he's kind of, you know, this unlikely friendship, and for some reason their dynamic I thoroughly enjoyed, because the Witcher obviously he has no feelings, he's monotone, he's very chiseled and, you know, a grizzled man, and this guy is like a pretty boy, and he's all kind of happy and go lucky and trying to sleep with all of these people. But one part is he writes a song about the Witcher, and no lie, I had to rewind that episode and listen to that song like 2 or 3 times, because that song slaps. The Bard, love his songs. I hope we get more of him in the future episodes and whatnot. Oh, and 2 final things is the humor. They pepper in humor fairly well. Again, with the Bard and the Witcher character, they go to a party and he says, we need to essentially be undercover, and then someone notices him and he's like, hey, Witcher, what's going on? So I thought that they have, it's not like laugh out knock knock jokes or gags or whatnot. It's very subtle, because, you know, it's a serious world, but there's very subtle humor that I appreciated. And then also the combat. There's a lot of fight scenes. Henry Cavill, the Witcher, is kicking ass, fighting monsters, fighting people. And I would say that the action choreography of these fight scenes is either shot well or it's directed very well, because it is very enticing to watch these people go up with one another. Not only like sword to sword, but also sword with magic and whatnot. And also, it is an adult show. I wouldn't say, like, you know, there's sex, but there's nudity and there's an orgy and there's very... the violence is very gritty, it's very raw, and you see everything. So I would say, if, again, it's on brand for the Game of Thrones people and kind of vibe. But yeah, this is very much an adult show, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this. Getting into the negatives, I mean, I don't have too many negatives for this show. I will say, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, it's a slow burn type show. You gotta give it a few episodes before it starts picking up and really grabbing you and keeping you intrigued. But I think the reason it was such a slow burn is because the structuring of the first few episodes felt wonky to me, and it was because I wasn't picking up on the clues. It didn't entirely make sense, because the Witcher, the mages, there's a lot of characters in this world that either age way differently than normal people or don't age at all. So I didn't understand the difference of time. There was a lot of characters that were showing up, and I'm like, wait a minute, did that already happen? Did that already happen? So I would say very much pay attention to this show, because once you figure out what's going on, it is very intriguing. I loved this show so far for the first season, but it took me a while to really be like, oh, that's sort of a flashback, or that happened way before, and they showed that because that ties in with that. So I would just say that the structuring isn't your conventional, you know, chronological boom, 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 boom. Pay attention to this show. And one little tiny nitpick, I think 1 or 2 fight scenes that I noticed is the weapons that they were using were kind of, you know, obviously rubbery. For example, a spear was bent a little bit. Nitpick, whatever. Game of Thrones had coffee cups in it. Not gonna knock it for that. Overall, I am thoroughly on board with The Witcher. I mean, season 1, it was fantastic, it was gritty, it was raw, it was high fantasy, creepy monsters, magic, beautiful women, awesome fight choreography, and the way that they set it up for, obviously, a season 2, I very much would love to see this become kind of a Netflix series that people are thoroughly getting on board for. They are loving this. When this comes out, everyone is talking about it, almost like a Stranger Things, but again, filling that Game of Thrones gap. I am on board for this show. I want to see more of it. The Witcher, Henry Cavill as that character, and then also Yennefer. I don't know her name, I'll put it right here. Absolutely beautiful. The purple eyes, beautiful touch, and the weird creatures in this. I'm loving the weird creatures. Give me more weird creatures. In closing, I'm going to give season 1 of The Witcher 3.7 out of 5 beautiful mages. So what do you guys think of The Witcher so far, if you were able to check it out, or if you're, again, very much looking forward to this one? I want to know in the comments down below. Anyways, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Watch some more videos up there, you know, movie reviews, trailer actions, fun comedy skits. Again, I was not expecting to watch all of this show. I was blown away. Highly recommend it. Follow all of my social media. Click that subscribe button. It seriously helps me out. Like this video, share this out. I'm taking Christmas break off. Enough of this. I'll see you later.